One of the things that I loved about teaching welding was using all different disciplines to try to get the idea across. So like I would start my new welders on piping icing because it's almost completely analogous to welding. The way you have to hold your angles, your travel speed, your heat, everything. There's this one idea that comes up everywhere in welding and machining and everywhere that you have tools, and that's the idea of user-centered design or user interface design or user-friendly design. And it's the idea that products should be made specifically intuitively, especially if you've got a modicum of mechanical abilities. It can be as simple as an arrow pointing where you need to put a pin in, or like the little ridges on a battery compartment. That's what I teach my daughters when they want to change the batteries in a toy. A good way to tell if you can do that is to look for a compartment that's got the little raised plastic ridges where you're supposed to put your finger to be able to slide that off. I'm thinking about it today because I'm taking apart my vacuum cleaner. So I guess this video is for the people who follow me who aren't necessarily like welders or tradespeople and aren't mechanically inclined, but are kind of like fascinated by this kind of stuff because you know more than you think you do, as long as you know the idea of user-centered design. And I'll show you what I mean on this vacuum cleaner. The last time I remember doing this, it was to a group of girls I was teaching how to weld, and she couldn't figure out how to get into the battery compartment of her welding hood. I just remembered that's where I came up with that example. I flipped it over. I'm like, okay, there's a battery here somewhere. There's no room except like here. How are we going to get into here? Oh, look at these 3 lines. Let's push on it, see what happens. You know, figure it out. And most even minimally mechanical products have cues like this and little prompts like this. And the more you take things apart, the more you'll want to take things apart, and the better you'll be at taking things apart and putting them back together. You don't have to ask for help, or if help's not available, you'll be able to do it yourself. Most good products are designed with the human user in mind, so just take a once-over and look at it and find all of the different things that might be trying to tell you. If you've ever seen someone get really mad and say, it looked like you should open it here, it looks like it should just slide in there, it's probably because they see something on the product that suggests that it should move in a certain way and it doesn't. That's infuriating. When in doubt, try, and if it's not working for you, just stop and take a breath and look at it and try again. Don't get frustrated and throw it into a wall. Not throwing it into the wall is the beginning of wisdom. The spinner brush is choked. I wonder if we can get into it. Fly it down and flip it over. Oh, here we go. We see good things already. So I could struggle with this like I have before. You just pick this out, maybe cut it and try to drag it out. But there's an easier way if we just take a look at this for a second. Hey, look, I see bright colors. Anytime you see something different in a product, it costs money to make. Anytime you see like a fancy shape or a fancy color, it costs money to have, you know, special dyes, meaning like to make it, special forms, and changing the colors on them too. That tells me this circle thing is pretty important. And oh, look, there's a little grasp here that feels like I could grab it. And there's one on the other side. Pull, and it comes off. What to do now? Oh, look, comes off that easily. It's more manageable now, but maybe we can go further. Not only do we have 2 matching little red wing things, but they look like they might swivel, and there's a little notch in here that shows that's where your finger goes. These little finger notches, without being obvious, just like those lines on a battery compartment, are prompts to tell you how to use something. And I'll bet the equipment that you're using at home has a lot more than you're taking advantage of. I've gone ahead and started to cut down all of the string and hair that this has been picking up, and look, there are even grooves here that I assume are for my sharps to ride along in. So much nicer. I'm gonna stick the head back on, but look, there's an electrical connection. That's the only thing you have to worry about, like making those 2 made up before you stick it together and slide that coupling on. That doesn't feel right or look right. Flip it, try it again. That's far better. Profile matches. While I'm discussing user-centered design, that's the reason that this is blue. If you've got this kind of vacuum, I hope you know that there are filters in here too. The blue might just be pretty, or the blue might suggest there's something in there, especially since there are these 2 little handy human-shaped finger holes. And look, it threads out. There's your filter. You'd assume you could pull it out. If the pulling out isn't working, take a look. It looks like these 2 arrows are lined up and I can't pull it out. I guess that means if I make them not line up, and there's only one way it can slide, which is counterclockwise, it pops right out. Let's get rinsed with cold water, dried completely, and you can return them. There's also a pre-filter up in here. Where have you seen some of these intuitive user-centered cues on products you've used this week?